Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone, hey, I hope you're having a great day. Obviously, a lot going on here behind the scenes, but, we have a great show planned for you where we have a regular correspondent that is none other than, Mike Cermak, as Craig used to call it, open mic night when we used to do our 10 to midnight show. But, Yeah. That was quite a while ago. But now, hey, we're 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And Mike Cermak joins us, owner-operator of techguy.org. And, all around, it's just a fun hour. So, everyone, before we get started here, a couple of things, computeramerica.com, that will have the show notes, that will have links to any articles that we do. Anything that we mention here on the show, we can throw into the show notes. Also, while you're at the website, check out the social media contest, check out the live video stream. And I think that's about it. So, everyone, again, welcome into the show, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So that disembodied voice you just heard, that was none other than Mike Cermak himself. And we have
hey.
Yeah, there he is. So Mike, welcome onto the show. And I asked you before, I'll ask you again. How you doing? I'm
doing all right, man. How's life?
Life is, and not to get too personal here, but we had to miss Monday's show because of kind of a family emergency. One of our dogs got sick, and we just figured out what it was today. And hey, we have a new diabetic in the family. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, that's something
Good
different.
To know what it is. I mean,
Yeah. So we've never had a diabetic dog, so now we get to go on that little adventure and see.
I don't know that I've ever heard of a diabetic dog, but I don't see why not. I mean,
I guess it's more common in cats, but
you gotta stop feeding them under the table now, huh?
We've been begging Craig to do that, and just that face, you can hardly resist it. So, anyways, that's what's going on here. But hey, that's not tech oriented. But when you come on the show, we have a number of stories that we're going to discuss. Some of them, actually, like one of them, we already mentioned on the air, so we'll kind of move quickly past that one. But yeah, you lined up a number of fun stories, and I think before we do that, we should of course introduce people to Mike Cermak, and techguy.org. So if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so techguy.org has been going strong for, how long has it been now? I always have to look it up. 1996, so, 20 some odd years.
23, yeah.
And yeah, it's going great. It's a forum. It was one of the first tech support forums on the internet where you can go in, post your questions for free, and everything on the site is free. It's paid for just by advertisements and donations. But you go post your question, and someone else in the community will try to help you out, or at least point you in the right direction. And the way it works, of course, is while you're in there, hopefully you can find someone else to help out as well.
Exactly. And it's definitely a great place to go. I know that I've definitely taken my tech support, kind of questions there, and your community is very diligent. They certainly start with the basics, turn it off, turn it back on again, and then
that's how you fix everything.
Yeah, exactly, and then they go from there. So always like to to have a link to that at Computer America. But yeah, so as I said before, you come on the show. Our show's kind of turned into together. Just kind of interesting new tech topics and interesting tech stories. And the one that we already mentioned that I am going to, kind of introduce again for anyone out there who did not listen to yesterday's show, but we can touch on it and then kind of get your thoughts. That was a story about the gentleman who unfortunately passed. He was the CEO, I believe, of the crypto exchange in Canada, and he was really the sole person who had access to all of the crypto wallets and cold storage, as they called them, and all the different assets that he was that he was kind of running, and they wanted, and obviously, when you have $200 million, you don't let a lot of people know the passwords to that, especially to cryptocurrency, because again, it can be stolen. It's cryptocurrency is one of those things that you can't really just kind of get back. So yeah, we kind of covered the story yesterday, but Mike, if you wouldn't mind, just why did this catch your eye? Because obviously big numbers, but this was something that I think the crypto community really didn't want to see.
No, of course not, right? And it's something that makes people even more scared to use cryptocurrency, and just another reason to be suspicious of it, which is a real shame in a lot of ways. And it's just kind of scary to think that one person in an exchange, has that much power or that much responsibility, and there's no redundancy there. There's not someone else who knows where the safe is that has the money. I mean, almost literally in this case, it's cold storage, so the crypto key, the wallet address, and all of that is literally just not available anymore. He had it somewhere physically, and we don't know where that is. So without that money's just in limbo. It's just no one can really touch it. So it's just kind of a fascinating story, especially at that level, right? Like $190 million. Right. Can you imagine that happening to an actual bank? Like, sorry, the CEO of the bank died, and no one knows where the key to the vault is. And in this case, there's no way to just, to open it. You can't get a locksmith in to open the vault. It's done.
Yeah, that was, that's kind of my analogy that I threw out yesterday, which was, the CEO of a bank died, and the entire bank had to close up shop and file creditor protection and, make sure that no one could sue them because, hey, you just lost everyone's money that was stored in your bank. We kind of segue that story into the idea that cryptocurrency exchanges have been a kind of a sore point in the whole ecosystem of cryptocurrency because, changing cryptocurrency to, let's say fiat currency or any other currency, any other coin, that's always been kind of a sticking point because we've seen hacks, we've seen embezzlement, we've seen now this where someone has actually died, no fault of their own and caused the whole thing to collapse. And hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrency have been, kind of surrendered or, had to be repaid. It's like if a bank were not really owned by anyone. It's just like you just had to trust the bank that's been around for 3 years or 5 years and just kind of hope that they're not going to, kind of go under or steal from you. It's a strange, way to kind of deal in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it is. And so that kind of leads me into a story I was going to tell. So I had an experience recently where I was talking to a friend of mine about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and that sort of thing, and started explaining bit miners. And of course, back in the day when Bitcoin first started, you could just run the Bitcoining miner software on your computer and it would generate Bitcoins over time. And that's kind of how the system works, is it thanks you for allowing your CPU cycles to go toward the greater good by handing you a little bit of a Bitcoin periodically. And that worked great for a long time, but it's designed in such a way that as more and more people get in there and as more Bitcoins have come out, it gets progressively more and more difficult and takes more and more CPU to do this. And now it really doesn't make sense to do it from a desktop computer anymore. Now you have dedicated computers that are designed only for the purpose of running this Bitcoin software. It doesn't run Windows on it. It just generates Bitcoins.
Right.
And I bought one of these maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I had it running for almost a year, and I did the math on it, and I was like, it's costing me more in electricity than it's actually generating in Bitcoin. And I said, it's just not worth my trouble to mess with. It was kind of a fun thing to play with, but yeah, so I got rid of it. I sold it back on eBay for somewhere around how much I had paid for it, and forgot all about it until 2 weeks ago. And I was thinking, what did I ever do with that? And so I had to go through this process. I had to contact the exchange. Fortunately, I had some emails from when I signed up for the exchange and went to log in there. And of course, I had 2-factor authentication on there with whatever phone I owned 4 or 5 years ago. And so that didn't do me any good. So to get the two-factor authentication reset, I had to go through this whole process of sending the exchange a copy of my driver's license and a picture of me holding the sign with my driver's license and the IP addresses I had been using at that time and what, and all this information. And then eventually they let me into my account. And I swear to you, Ben, I thought I was going to find $100 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 0.73 Bitcoin, which comes up to around $2,600.
That and obviously the price fluctuates, but 0.73 turns out to be $2,455.81.
Yeah,
not bad.
I was
not
kind of
bad.
taken aback. So here's the problem. So I discovered this, and I am, as I think anyone would be, I get really excited when I find a $20 bill in my pocket. So when I suddenly find $2,400 or $2,500 in my pocket, I was pretty excited. So I ran upstairs from my office and told my wife right away. And she said, "Well, now we can go rent that beach house for the summer." And I was like, no, that's not what.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I know just how to spend that. And it's like, wait, no.
She spent it like without blinking an eye. It was spent, but my true problem here, and maybe I'll get your recommendation on this, is I don't know quite what to do with it. I don't know if I ought to just sit it there and see if Bitcoin, swoops back up, or if I should pull it out and run, or what. I don't know. What's your suggestion? See, a friend of mine says, it's like found money that, if it goes down, then I haven't really lost anything. I just leave it there and see what happens.
So I recently wrote an article about this, and I will preface this all by saying Computer America should not be used for any kind of financial advice. Now, let me give you financial advice. Bitcoin is one of those things that most of the people who will comment and say you should do X with your Bitcoin, and and they have some kind of I guess educated opinion about what you should do with it. Unfortunately, a lot of them have a lot of vested interest in Bitcoin. We saw that a lot of experts that were saying you need to buy Bitcoin, you need to buy this other coin, you need to do this XYZ. They also owned a lot of the cryptocurrency themselves, so they had a huge vested interest in making sure that you kept your money there, that you bought more of it, that you invested. And that's what I found. When I was writing this article, I was trying to find like a non-biased way. And like you look up articles like right now, it was like, why the latest Bitcoin dump could actually launch the crypto market into bullish territory, saying that it's going to be 20,000 by the end of the year. Other people are saying it's going to be 100,000 per Bitcoin by the end of the year. People are still sticking to their guns, saying that it's going to be $5 million of Bitcoin by 2023. There are people who are so optimistic, yet at the same time, Bitcoin that's just not how it's working. It's just not how it's turning out. So the short of it is, if you're looking for some kind of advice with this, personally, the 20,000 hump that we saw, I've looked into it, and by most accounts, that looked like price manipulation. That looked like people goosing the price, spending hundreds of millions or billions of dollars goosing the price of Bitcoin. They sold at the 20 million and really short sold the entire community. So if you're hoping that someone else is going to goose the market again,
if you could do that for me, Ben, I'd really appreciate it. It would help me out a lot.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, but maybe Ethereum.
Or if you could have at least given me a heads up like a year ago when it was up at 20 grand, per Bitcoin.
So yeah, but I mean, that was the thing, was that no one knew why that huge meteoric rise was happening, except for the people who were doing it. So I'm saying, if you're hoping that it shoots back up to where it was, fat chance you have to be lucky to get in on the Ponzi scheme. I would kind of be with your friend, take your money and run. It's found money, because Bitcoin, it's unfortunately, there's so much, like, I feel like, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And I think most people's first impression was, hey, I bought Bitcoin at $15,000 and now I'm sitting on it at $3,000 hoping it goes back up. I feel like the taste for Bitcoin is so much soured that personally, and this is, again, all personal, not financial advice, I would not wait for it to go back up to 20,000. I would just say, it is what it is right now. And if you're not invested in it, then I've heard a lot of people say, I wake up every day, I check the price of Bitcoin. I go to bed every day, I check the price of Bitcoin. Once you sell, you really don't care anymore. You free up your mental space too.
Yeah, that's true. I like the idea of simplicity, but then I'm confident that as soon as I sell, it's going to jump back up to 20 grand.
See, then you need to do the Bitcoin community a service by selling so that everyone else can profit. Be the martyr that you are meant to be, apparently. But but hey, all that aside, I will say it's very interesting that you're able to find that amount of Bitcoin. And I ran a program for like 2 days on my computer, and I have a really beefy graphics card, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna earn something. I earned like $1.23 over like 2 days, but like my GPU was like running at 100%. I'm like, I like my GPU more than I like Bitcoin. And so like I wonder how many people are just like you. We hear the story about the guy who threw away a hard drive with 20,000 Bitcoin stored on it. We hear stories of the pizza and things like that. Bitcoin's interesting, and regardless if you actually make money off it like you did, it's an interesting technology. So
it is interesting, and yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. I'm still kind of stuck in a quandary. I'm gonna have to give it some more thought.
Don't exchange it on the exchange on Quadriga CX. That's about the only solid advice I can give you.
Wait, that's where it was.
Oh no, but yeah.
Just kidding.
So yeah. I mean, and getting back to the story real quick. I mean, the wife, she had to kind of file protection because I'm sure people who are recently out $190 million in so many different currencies. Yeah. Just crazy. So crazy
and you got to feel bad for her. I mean, assuming that's all accurate, and I have no reason to suspect it's not. I suspect the kind of guy who runs a cryptocurrency exchange is not sharing the password with his wife and other people. I can totally see him as a paranoid kind of guy who would do that, which is kind of the way you would want to be if you want to have a guy running a cryptocurrency exchange. You want him to be paranoid, but it just, I guess, never occurred to him that he's not going to live forever.
Well, hey, let's take this a step further, and I don't know how many of our audience actually run a cryptocurrency exchange, but let's say someone runs, I don't know, a home business, small office, whatever. They have their own hard drives with their own financial records and whatnot. They want to keep it safe. Let's say they have anything that they want to keep safe that maybe they want their next of kin to kind of keep track of. Why don't we have this as a learning lesson and say, Mike, what advice would you give people that obviously writing down your password and sticking it under your keyboard is probably not the safest way to go about it, but how do you ensure that maybe people are able to get into your devices if you're ever in a coma, if you pass away, if you're just indisposed? Do you have any kind of anything in place to let people, kind of pick things up and keep things moving?
Well, I think my plan is just to post all of my passwords on the internet. That way, if anything happens, they're available for people
right there on techguy.org. It's like click here for the forum, click here for the passwords.
I don't see how that could go wrong. Well, so what I think people ought to do, and again, I'm with you. I'm not giving financial advice, but for all of our financial stuff, we have a folder where my wife knows where it is in the safe, and it has all the, here's the life insurance policy and that policy and this and the retirement funds and all of that. And also in there is a USB stick that has passwords and other, required information on it. And that way it's physically locked in a safe and secure, and she knows where it is and I know where it is. And that way, that's a little bit of a contingency plan. I don't know if that's the best plan in the world. There's pros and cons to even that. I don't know. I don't know what else you might do.
Yeah, that's interesting because there's not. I really don't think there is a best, kind of a best practice because hey, the point of a password is that anyone else does not get into your things, and if you are, if you are yourself, or you should be yourself, but no one else should be able to get into that. But I do like the USB with the passwords and things like that much better than my plan of the Word document on my desktop. So I'll have to look into that.
Well, they have to be able to get to the desktop.
Yeah, and they'll never figure out my secret password of 1234. That's super secure. But I do like that. And okay, so hey, that was my attempt to turn that into a learning experience. It's hey, let's hope.
Think it's something people do need to think about. It's not a fun thing to think about, but gee whiz, it does happen. And as much as you can make things easier for the people who are still hanging around down here, I think you should.
Yeah, and certainly in this case, we would have seen that $190 million.
And really, what you should have on that USB drive, and what I have on mine, this is another thing I'm always pushing every time I'm on your show, is the password for your password manager.
Right.
Because you shouldn't be having a list of passwords in your Word document. I know you were kidding, but enough people have that. And you should have a password manager, LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane, I don't care which one it is. And download them. They all have free trial stuff, and see which one you like, and keep your passwords in there, and keep different passwords for every website. You shouldn't have, one password and every website is a variation of that. Have different passwords, and that way you can share them with other people when you need to as well.
So this is actually a pretty good segue into our next story, and this is Chrome.
Look at how we did that, like we're pros.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say that you mentioned a password manager. Have you been trying the password manager that Chrome recently, kind of built in?
I have a little bit. So I've used the Chrome built-in password thing for a while, especially, Chrome has had the, your account is linked to your Chrome login, and it saves your passwords and links them between devices. And that works pretty well. It's not, I don't know. It feels a little clunky, especially when going between devices and mobile devices. So if I have like an Apple device, Chrome just doesn't feel the same on there. Or if I quickly just need to look up the password to be able to type it into a different device, it's not quite as smooth as I'd like. So I still kind of like a password manager, but if you ask me a year from now, it's conceivable that all of that functionality could be brought into Chrome.
Yeah, and this may be news to you, but they recently came. Well, and this is just something that I noticed when when I was browsing. When you make a new account and you have to do something, Chrome will now actually recommend a password, and not just kind of say it's your old password. No, it's a long string of letters and characters and numbers,
and that's what it should be, right?
And and like it does it and it saves it, and like you create your username, it recommends you a password. You can of course go ahead and enter your own password if you want to, but then you hit save. And I got to be honest, like maybe about the last 4 accounts I've made, and it really made me realize how many accounts I make online. But the last 4 accounts I made, I don't know the passwords to them. If someone held me at ransom, I don't know my own passwords. But Chrome is pretty good.
I don't want people to misunderstand. You shouldn't know your own passwords. That's the idea.
Yeah, and
no one
Chrome,
should.
Yeah, so Chrome works pretty well for that, and I got to say, highly recommended. Or like you said, any other password manager.
Right.
But I also have to say, the story, anyone out there watching the show, the live video feed, Chrome can tell you if your passwords have been compromised. This is something I wish every service or anyone I gave a password to, this is something I wish they do.
Yeah, well, and so what this does is, and there's controversy with this as well we can get into, but what this does is it's an extension you can install into Google Chrome, and it'll check your password and let you know if it has been listed in one of those many data breaches that have happened over the last several years. So if you have an email address and password combination, your whatever Computer America, and your password is 123, that's going to be in a database somewhere, because LinkedIn had a data breach, and this place had every place has had a data breach. That's an exaggeration, but not by much. Millions and millions and millions of passwords are out there, and it would be shocking if your email address, dear listener, is not on there somewhere.
Well, let's put it this way. Yahoo was hacked, and that's 3.4 billion accounts right there. So when I say everyone, I mean there are probably more saved passwords than there are people on Earth.
Well, that's true. It's very likely, and there are wonderful websites like what's the pwned
Have I Been
one?
Pwned?
Yeah, Have I Been Pwned? And you have to spell that correctly when you Google it.
And have I, so HAVEI, the letter I, BEEN, Ben Pwned, PWNED.com. Anyone out there wants to go check it out, the article that we're actually looking at, and we're going to throw in the show notes, has a link to it in that article as well. So.
Yep. And you can just go in there, type in your email address, and it'll let you know, you're on one of the lists. And so, or at least one of the lists. And I just put mine on there, and it says, for my personal email address, I've got 20 different breaches that my email address is listed in, all the way from, Adobe to Discuss to Dropbox there's just tons of them out there.
Yeah, let's see. Looking at mine,
and this is why you don't use the same password or variation thereof on every website, because one of these places gets hacked, they get that password, and they say, gee, this is the password that Mike used on Dropbox. Maybe it's the same one he used for his banking, or the same one he used for his email. And once they get into your email, they can go to every other website and say, forgot my password.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a pretty interesting service, and I gotta say, I entered my personal email, not my business email. But yeah, these hacks, they're so scary because like I didn't realize how long I've had this email. Apparently, Neopets was hacked, and back when I was like 9, I had a Neopets account on the same email address. So yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what Neopets are? Neopets.
No, I might be too old.
Neopets was like, I'm assuming you know what flash games are, like in-browser flash games.
Of course. Oh, yeah, sure.
Neopets was like a whole community for like having like a pet and then playing those flash games for kids. And yeah, like it's a good 15, 16, 17 years behind me. And and this website said that my email was compromised in that from that service. So
yep. Well, and that happens all the time. So what this extension does is it's called Password Checkup. It's by Google, and it actually will check your passwords as you enter them and let you know if they have been already compromised. If it's already on someone's list that they know that email address and password is one that should be tried.
So I can already see if someone downloads this. If nothing else, this can alert people that, hey, this password is not that safe, because if you enter your password and it's let's say you own a German Shepherd and it's like German Shepherd 123, then that is most likely going to come up on a list somewhere and it's going to say this password has been compromised. It may not be compromised with your email address, like the combination, but if it's compromised somewhere, it's on a list somewhere and it's going to be checked. So if nothing else, it will alert you if you just have weak passwords. If you just have bad passwords, this is probably a good way to kind of get a heads up.
Yep, and I use a password manager and have religiously for about a year or so. I've told people to for much longer than that, but then I finally decided I needed to take my own advice, and it's shocking. It's so nice, just like you described, that whenever you go in there, you can just hit a button. It'll generate a password. You don't have to think about it, or know it, or be able to read it. And it's a little frustrating because every once in a while I run into a thing where it says, "Sorry, your password is too long," or it has symbols in it that we don't permit. It's like your password's too secure. We need you to turn that down just a little bit. Like, we can't have it quite that secure. And it's really frustrating to me, especially when they don't tell me exactly what's, their requirements are.
Right.
But the other funny experience I had, and I don't know if I shared this with you before or not, but my wife needed to log into my Amazon account at one time, and she sent me a text and say, "Hey, what's your Amazon password?" So I opened up my password manager on my phone and copied the password and sent it to her. And she's like, "I don't even know how to make some of these symbols."
I'm guessing those were alt codes, and
and it was just an auto-generated one. It had a tilde and a whatever in it, and it's just not common symbols that people use every day. And and it was just a funny reaction. She's like, "What is this?" I don't know. I didn't pick it. It's just.
I can definitely see that, and man, that's. But hey, that is the privilege of using a password manager, where you don't even have to like I bet you you wouldn't even know how to type in your own password. So hey, that's
that's absolutely right. And we beat this horse enough. Definitely go do it. Please check it out. You're foolish if you don't. We've warned you.
Very, very well said. I like to scare our audience as much as possible. And speaking of scaring the audience, I think I saw this in either The Rock, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, or some other action hero movie. We mentioned this yesterday on the show, so we're just going to kind of mention it again in passing. But I wanted to see why this caught your eye. Magnetic north is different from, I guess geographical north, or I should say the North Pole. And as we learned in the article yesterday, they can actually drift by up to about 30, 50 miles a year. Now we're getting into territory where the magnetic North Pole is shifting wildly. And yeah, so why did this catch your eye?
Well, it's just fascinating because it's the sort of thing most people think is just solid. Like, of all of the things in the world that you can trust that won't be changing, we have this crazy world with bitcoins and passwords, but at least we know the North Pole is the North Pole. And I don't think people even realize that the North Pole isn't magnetic north.
Well, I'm wondering how many people don't realize that there's not like a candy cane pole up there, in Santa's somewhere in the vicinity, just hidden behind a cloaking device. But I don't know. But Mike, there's music playing in the background. We are going to come right back. We're going to wrap that up. And then I think we're going to talk about the Google Assistant translation service, because that's really cool. Everyone, stay tuned. More Mike Cermak, more TechEye.org, more Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, we are, of course, talking with Mike Cermak, TechEye.org. Go check it out. And everyone, hey, if you missed any part of our conversation so far, feel free to check it out wherever podcasts are heard. All you have to do, search Computer America. And yeah, hey, we should pop right up. And if we don't, feel free to send us an email, live@computeramerica.com, and we'll work on actually getting it. And yeah, hey, and don't forget to join us in the chat room as well. Thank you for the reminder, Mike. Also, twitch.tv/Computer America. So, okay, all that being said, welcome back to the program, Mike. So right before the break, we were just, kind of quickly mentioning the fact that magnetic north is different than, I guess, geographic north. And one thing that we should probably mention, and not that we're anywhere near politics on the show, but I did find it interesting that, we just came out of the government shutdown. It was about a month of doing nothing. And this was one of the projects that was affected by the government shutdown because they had the data, they had the research, they needed to push an update because think of everything in the world that uses, GPS and compasses and things like that. And yeah, they all had to be updated, but we had to wait a month because of the shutdown. So interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And fortunately with GPS devices, they're not as affected by the magnetic north floating around as it does. And it's just been doing a little bit more than it has usually. It's been a little bit less predictable lately, which is a problem for things that, depend on a compass, which is not a lot anymore. But some small airplanes still primarily navigate by compass rather than by GPS. Usually they have a GPS as well, but legally they're flying under
Is that why there are so many Cessnas in the news lately about going down and crashing? Has this shift of the polar, of the magnetic North Pole just kind of sent all these planes into neighborhoods?
It's
seems
not
like
going to
every
cause
other
planes
day.
to drop out of the air necessarily, but it will, especially if you're somewhere up north where that little bit of variation is going to be more dramatic. It could mess up navigation a little bit. I mean, a very little bit.
Right.
But if you're flying IFR where you can't see outside anyway, you're going to be GPS more than likely, or at least on radio. But it's just something that's kind of interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you think of, like I said, your world is stable, at least in this regard. The compass always points north, but sometimes it doesn't.
It's and again, to put it again into perspective, between 1900 and 1990, it moved like 600 miles, and it moved that same distance between like 1990, late 90s to today. So we've had about 100 years worth of activity in about 15, 20 years. It's exciting times if you are one of the people in charge of this. But hey, like you said, I don't think a lot of us really rely on getting home. We have smartphones. We don't need compasses anymore. I guess just the Boy Scouts, and now of course everyone involved with the Boy Scouts. I guess they're affected, but good luck with that. All right, so looking through here, like I said, I think the next topic, if unless you had a better or a different one in mind, we can of course talk about the Google Assistant. I didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday, and definitely wanted to bring it up because real-time translation. More and more services are getting this. I think Skype does it. I know they do real-time.
I heard they were going to, but I've never tried it.
Yeah, if you could just speak some, I don't know, German, Arabic, Spanish. If you could just do that
Hola,
real quick.
¿Cómo está?
Yeah, I didn't do it. So, okay. And I don't speak French, but I will say that this is a pretty cool feature. And I mean, are you really impressed by this? Or, I
saw the video. The Verge had a good video demonstrating it on a concierge desk. Did you see that?
We're going to show it right here. And anyone out there watching, we're going to, kind of expand it here, closed caption. And even YouTube's like speaking foreign language. And so we'll watch here. But you really start to see go ahead.
What's interesting on it is if you skip ahead to, I'm trying to remember, it's about a minute in or something, is where they actually start talking to the thing, and it's messes up a couple of times during their demonstration. Like she's asking about restaurants nearby, and it says May 18th or something like that. And there were a couple different instances where it did not understand, which you have to expect to a certain regard. I mean, technology is not perfect. And the other thing is that it's a little bit unnatural to use because there's some long pauses while it figures it out. You ask something and it may take 4 or 5 seconds before it shows up, and then a couple more seconds before it begins to actually speak in the other language. For those who can't see the video, the way it works though is, you put it into translator mode or interpreter mode, and you can have one person speak whatever language, and then it'll reverse it back into English and show it on the screen and speak it. And then you can say something in return in English, and it'll show it on the screen in the other language, and then it will reverse it and speak it. It's a very cool technology. And as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I think it would almost be better if you didn't have the device speak it. If I said to the device, what are you looking for today, and it could just show on the screen in whatever language, in Japanese or Spanish or whatever, and then they could respond back in their language and show it to me on the screen, I think it would be a much faster and a little bit less painful to use. But you still have that little bit of delay, which I'm sure will continue to improve as all technology does. But it's moving in the right direction. I don't see it being used widely yet, but
And I gotta say, this is something that people have been doing for a long time. Like sometimes when I speak to people who don't, speak English, they will kind of take what I say, what I text them or what I email them, and they'll run it through the Google Translator most likely. and they'll and of course there's still the same kind of hiccups and grammatical errors and whatnot, but I think people have been doing this for a lot longer than I think even Google will admit. I remember my brother had an exchange student stay with us. He was from the French Alps, and he they were paired. His school here in America went to France in exchange with this, and I guess the French kid was supposed to learn English and practice English here in America, and when he got here, he's like, yeah, I don't know any English. And so we pulled out Google Translate. This was maybe 12, 13 years ago. And we were doing this exact exercise, but back then. And I think a lot of people have been doing this. This is just a way that it's kind of meant to do this, and it's kind of automated. So,
right. Yeah,
there was
certainly makes the process much less painful to do. It's still a little bit awkward, more so than I think it needs to be. But I'm sure that will improve. I mean, give it another 5-10 years, it's gonna be a lot better. And I love the screen you're paused on there.
Yeah. And I saw that saying I want to eat Western food with steak. So obviously wants to eat steak, Western cuisine. I am a little allergic to sand. So unless she's actually allergic to sand, yeah, not really what she meant to say. And you
can see the text at the bottom of the screen of what she actually said, asking for Western cuisine and saying she's allergic to shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not the same as being allergic to sand. And misinterpretations like that could be critical. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you had this device at a restaurant and you said, I'd like to order something, but I'm allergic to sand, and they'd be like, oh, well, you'll love the seafood dish then.
Well, and all of this mixed together, and I'm going to go ahead and segue into kind of another Google story with artificial intelligence. But we've seen that all it really takes for this thing to get better is for people to use it. And as people use it, as more data gets collected, and Google is well known for their great use of data, it's just going to get better. So you say 5 years, I say not even that long. I think there was another service, it might be Siri or Apple, because I think it had to do with AirPods, where two people could wear an AirPod, and I guess they have microphones built into them, and they could speak, and it would real-time translate into their ear and to one another. So,
and that would be great, depending on exactly how well it works. Like as far as not just the accuracy, but also the delay, because. Introducing even a 5 or 6 second delay between the end of a sentence and when the next person begins to hear it is really, it feels strange.
Well, I mean, we could try that here. I could just wait, 10 seconds to respond to everything you say, but you're right. That would just sound awful. So we're not going to do that.
10, 9.
No. Oh, no, we're not doing it. So like I said, that's Google Assistant. And I know that Skype is working on it. I know that Apple is working on it. Everyone is working.
Babblefish from Alta Vista.
I
think it was Alta Vista.
Wait, say again?
Babblefish by Alta Vista.
Did they shorten their name to Babel? To just Babel?
I think it's still just called, and I maybe someone can correct me. I'm almost sure it was by Alta Vista back when Alta Vista was a thing, but yeah, it may have been renamed to just Babel.
Well, there's Babblefish, you're right, and Babblefish.com seems to still be up and running. Looks like it still looks like Alta Vista. So
Wikipedia says that Yahoo Babblefish was a free web-based multilingual translator. In 2012, it was replaced. I wonder when it started. 1997. It started as an Alta Vista translation service at babblefish.altavista.com and then was acquired by Yahoo. Yeah, so my mind isn't completely blown. But 1997, you weren't even born then, but you I'm exaggerating a little, I think.
Just a little. I was a solid 6 years old.
So you might not have a clear memory of that then. But I remember that was one of the first online translation services, and it was pretty amazing at the time. And of course, one of the fun things to do, especially then, but even now, was to type in a sentence and have it convert from English to a language, say back. Spanish, and then from Spanish to Japanese, and then Japanese to whatever, and then bring it back to English and see. It's like your own little personal game of telephone. phone,
Right.
and see how close. And especially back in those days, it was pretty terrible because it was just literal. Like it was, this word is this word. And now, obviously, the complexities of language, it gets much, much more complex, but much more accurate now than what it ever did back then. But it was amazing, even in '97. I remember back in my day.
Well, hey, and to be fair, '97, I think I was busy playing Warcraft 2. So
Well, as you should have been.
I was on the computer, but yeah, you're right. Translation software. And you could do it today where like you can actually kind of punch things into a translator, and if it's kind of real time, it will actually go back and change words that were previously one word and change them to fit the context of the next word after it. So
Right.
they're getting better, and like I said, a lot of companies, not just American companies, but companies like Samsung and so on, they are all working on translation. So, I had this dream for a long time to learn a second language. I tried Spanish for 7 years. That didn't work. I tried German for 2 years. That didn't work. Hey, maybe technology is going to take away my dream, and I'll just be able to communicate with everyone because technology. Because I'm lazy. So there's that. Definitely cool. And like I said, we can transition this from Google because that was their Google Assistant feature that they rolled out. And Gmail, I actually didn't send you the story. I apologize. I'll actually send it to you through Skype right now. Let me see if I can do that. So this has to do with Gmail and using artificial intelligence, their favorite, and having to do with, they're blocking more spam than ever. And you wonder, how can these things get through spam filter? And I just wanted to, kind of highlight that I think email had the possibility of becoming one of the worst technological boondoggles, I guess, that has ever been invented. Like imagine a mailbox that anyone from the world can cram full of anything that they want. Email had such the possibility to be such a bad technology, but hey, Google and a lot of other companies, they're working on blocking spam, and they say that Gmail already blocks 99.9% of spam. Think of the thousands of spam emails that you get in your spam folder and multiply that by 1,000-fold. I mean, it's crazy how good they're getting at blocking spam.
Yeah, it really is. And as they point out, it becomes increasingly more difficult to do so as you get up there. If you're already blocking 99.9% of all spam that's coming in, just that last 0.01%, or 0.1%, people would think would be, pretty easy. It's 0.1%. You've already done 99.9% of the work, but that's not the way it works, of course, because the spammers are increasingly trying to avoid the spam catching software, the spam protection software, and it's an arms race between them. The protection software gets a little bit better at detecting this. The spammers change things a little bit so that it's not detected anymore, and it goes back and forth forever. It's really difficult, and as you have a spam, and we deal with a lot of spam protection software in my real business, and it's really difficult because there's that fine line between catching as much spam as possible and also not misidentifying a real message as spam.
Yeah, and that I've had to deal with that as well at Computer America. When we send out kind of invitations for the show or do like these mass mailers, if you're not careful and you send too many emails, through an automated list or an automated process, I think Google almost put us on a list as a spam provider, and we were like, oh no, we're sorry, we won't send 300 emails a day again. Our bad. And and it's they have ways to do it, and they have false positives, but I think they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and there's a lot for people out there who are interested in sending out bulk mail. There are a lot of rules to follow, and your best bet is to use some list management program. Yeah, there's the MailChimp and a bunch of other ones out there.
So we
Constant
learned.
Contact and.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that article, and really, again, not much to it. Just wanted to highlight that, and I think the article has to do with a service that Google was working on. I believe it's called TensorFlow, and which I guess is one of those kind of offshoot Google companies that happen every once in a while. And TensorFlow is their artificial intelligence to scan all these emails. So.
And it's interesting that the AI can be developed in such a way to do that. That's really the interesting part of the story.
And for everyone out there who thinks, does this even matter when I have an email and I mark it as spam and I delete it, does that action even matter? Yes, every one of those data points goes back to Google or TensorFlow or whoever wants them and says this email and whatever its contents is spam, and we have to be on the lookout for these kinds of indicators. So everyone out there, this is all you're doing too. You're helping mark spam, and this bot then kind of takes it from there. So it's working on it now. Okay, plenty of time. I wanted to get your opinion on this because we did cover it on the show. Just to be clear, we talked about how Apple with their FaceTime bug, how that worked, and we talked about. You start a FaceTime call, someone doesn't pick up, you add yourself back into the call, and for some reason that would force the FaceTime call to the second person who didn't pick up. That would force them to enter the call with the third person picked up, so that you could essentially turn anyone's smartphone, or iPhone I should say, with FaceTime, anyone's iPhone into a pseudo bug. And we were talking about why this kind of matters. Consider that the President of the United States has his own unsecured iPhone that he carries around with him 24/7. Imagine if you could hack into the President's iPhone at any point. It's this was a big vulnerability. Apple was kind of slow to get back on it, but they fixed it. They got it. Now I sent you an article. This has to do with the House committee wants answers from Apple about its FaceTime bug, and I kind of wanted your feelings on the whole thing. And I guess I don't know, getting dragged back into a congressional committee and saying, "What the heck, Apple?" I feel like that's pretty extreme for a bug that some 14-year-old kid found.
Well, and especially for this type of bug. I mean, it's not as though it's something where you could just say, all right, I want to listen in on so-and-so's, iPhone. You had to have, them request the FaceTime connection. So it's still kind of scary, but it's not as dramatic as it could have been. It could have been much worse. And I don't know. I mean, having done some software development, little bugs like that are easy to make and hard to find, because who is ever going to try to add someone to the group chat before there's someone in the group chat who's answered?
Not just anyone. Add yourself back into the group chat. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a strange thing too. I mean, no matter how much quality assurance you do and beta testers you have and people trying to hammer on it, trying to break it before it gets released to public, there's little things like that are scenarios that are just really hard to come up with and hard to plan for. So it's hard for me to be mad at Apple on that one. And I'm not an Apple guy. I have an Android, but it's one of those things where mistakes happen. And the real question, I guess, I think what you need to look at more seriously is when something like that is discovered, how do they respond to it? And they took a little while to respond to it. I mean, they didn't instantly decide this was a real serious problem. And that might have been more concerning than anything else. I don't know, have they released the update to fix it yet? I know they just disabled Monday. Group chats for a while.
Yeah, they disabled the servers for group chats, and I think that's getting pushed out with 12.2, which I think is next Monday. So it's down for now, and then it will be back up when the update comes out. But yeah, it's
I missed the show. So what's your feeling on this? I mean, I don't know if it's bad enough to pull them into the House committee for.
Yeah, I think that the reason that they're kind of angry at Apple is the fact that so many people use iPhones, and they think that these things should be up to standard. And love them or hate them, Apple is a consumer company. They're not they don't have the reputation that I think BlackBerry had a while ago, which is like this is the secure business device. No, it's just business people like using iPhones. Everyone likes using iPhones. That's why they're iPhone. But at the same time, I just didn't feel like that they should be faulted for this. It's like you said, no matter how many beta testers you have, no matter how long you keep it in development, there's always going to be...
What? Yeah, and what this was, I'm sorry to step on you. I'm just thinking out loud. What this is not so much, a misplanning on their account, or that they, didn't write software to be secure enough, or that they didn't encrypt something that they should have encrypted, or they had a dummy password they left in there. It wasn't something that malicious or even that that what's the word I'm looking for? Is that
evil or
yeah, or even that dumb. It wasn't as though they were just being completely complicit. It's just such a strange problem, and the scenario you need to go through in order to do it is just something that no one had tried before. And I don't know if I can be too mad at them for that. I mean, and that's going to happen anytime you release new software, even if it's just an update. There's going to be bugs in it. I mean, I don't care what you do, and nothing's 100%.
So yeah, and there was a story. I think I found it here, and this is from CNET back in 2015. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a way that you could, any Mac OS out there, you could get to the login screen, and I think it was like a simple Apple Command R, and then you go into the settings, and you could actually say reset password. And you could bypass, and although I think it was something a little bit different than that, but anyways, there was a bug with Mac OS that you could bypass the login password for any Mac computer out there. And it's like, Apple's not infallible. You should have different, security measures in place, but they get hammered on more than any other because they're kind of the biggest, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and there's something very, very similar in Windows where there's an accessibility button in the Windows login screen, and there was a way to go in there, if you boot up off of a flash drive and replace that accessibility with like a command prompt. So then you can pop in and start changing passwords and do what you need to.
But I feel like if you went screaming to the media and you said, "Hey, I found this vulnerability that you could hack into Windows," they'd go, "Yeah, there's a million of them. Congratulations." But if you went screaming into that same room saying, "Hey, I can hack into any iPhone," they would jump all over you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
I think that's true.
I think it's just fashionable.
So what's the difference?
Apple is cool. No offense, but Microsoft is just like they're not exactly known for their security. Of course, I'm not saying that Microsoft doesn't take security seriously. It's just Apple. I think is just kind of the cooler one to find a vulnerability in. So. I think that's just about it. So we have time for one more story. I have a couple more lined up here. Why don't we talk about? All right. I just want your opinion on this one. I'm not even going to send you the article. Anyone out there watching the video portion, we're going to throw it up there. But the New York Police Department, you know them? They're the police department. So
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Cool.
Not intimately familiar. I'll let you know.
Yeah, and hey, thanks to Google, a number of people aren't as well, and this is the problem. So this is from CBS Local saying that New York Police Department to Google stop revealing locations of DWI checkpoints. And this is where the internet giant, either through different services, I'm sure that things like Waze, and Waze is owned by Google, will actually users can indicate where there are DWI checkpoints, where there are slowdowns, traffic jams, whatever, mainly to help you save time on the road. Well, the New York Police Department is, getting a little fed up with it. What do you think about, crowdsourcing this information? Because again, Google is not getting this information themselves and publishing it. No, it's the users, it's the New Yorkers who are alerting other New Yorkers to these checkpoints and making New York Police Department's job a little bit harder.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago, within the last year or two, there were people complaining, or police departments complaining about possible safety issues because Waze was allowing people to go in there and mark where police are, and of course the idea on that is exactly what you'd expect: is people want to know where not to speed.
Yeah,
and there's a police officer up ahead, but there was a safety concern with that too. That people who might want to hurt a police officer have a nice app they can download to show them where all the police officers are. So same kind of issue. And I've even seen people post on Facebook saying, "Hey, don't drive down this road tonight because there's a DWI checkpoint there." And I'm like, well, I kind of want people to go through that checkpoint, actually.
And
the sort of person who would avoid that checkpoint is usually the sort of person I want not to be avoiding that checkpoint.
That's very true. But I mean, that's the same thing that people have been doing since, I guess, the dawn of these checkpoints in cars. To me, it's kind of the same thing as like flashing your high beams to oncoming traffic, saying, "Hey, there's a car coming."
Mm-hmm.
Although I guess cops cops started to pull people over for doing that because obviously, tipping them off kind of ruins the whole point of a checkpoint. And I don't know, if Waze wasn't doing it, I'm sure that there would be another app to come in and kind of fill the void. But I guess being so easily integrated into Waze might be the problem as well. I don't know if Google needs to change it though. Do you think Google should change this functionality?
I don't know if they're under any legal obligation to change it, but morally, I think perhaps they should. The trouble is to prevent people from doing it in some other way, right? There'll suddenly be a secret code. People will know that if there's a marked as a wreck on the side of the road, and what are some of the other things you can mark
it's like a wreck and icy road together mean a cop or something.
Right. Yeah. That's what people will end up doing. I mean, which is still better than out and out saying there's a checkpoint here.
Yeah, I think so. So, hey, we covered a lot of news. And before we say goodbye, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, techguy.org. If people want to find out more, where can they go?
Absolutely. Go to techguy.org or go to the Computer America site and go to the support forums, and we're there to help. If you have any computer problems, Windows, Mac, whatever, someone's there who can give you a hand.
Very, very cool. And everyone, we're about out of time. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next month. I hope things improve, pass okay, and go to hunky dory. And in the meantime,
aim for hunky dory next month. You got it, man.
Looking forward to it. And catch you next time. And everyone else out there, we're flat out of time. Thank you for joining us. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.